Hey guys, welcome back for another quick message here on this particular platform. And as always, thank you for taking the time to subscribe if you have done so already and hitting the notification button to receive new messages when they're released here on this particular platform. And so, as always, I want to start with our opening scripture for the week, which is none other than Psalm 139:14, which is a reminder that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's right, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And so, with that, allow that to be your reflective moment whenever you start to question your self-worth or your value or the things in life when they're not going as you intended or anticipated for the goals that you've set forth for yourself, or just with things coming together in what it is that you desire to do in life. And so, as always, on this particular platform, any messages that you receive, you should be taking it back to our Father in heaven. And so, we'll dive in, and our message subject matter for today is none other than grief. And so, with grief, we know that grief is a permanent end to something, it is the loss of something that is equated to an emotional state of being. And so, when you lose something, it causes this type of emotional response, and grief has a lot of different steps. So when you're grieving something or someone, because that's actually what grief is all about, you're losing something or someone that is very, very valuable to you. And so when you're doing these things, you're processing the emotions, there are certain steps that you have to go through. So the first step would be denial. You may go through a phase where you just do not want to accept that which you've lost because it had that great of a impact on your life or a value. You think about a loved one, a lot of the times the reality doesn't set in immediately. It's something after the denial process takes place that you are able to now comprehend and move forward in. And then you go through the phase where you're angry. You start to question our Father in heaven. Why did this happen? You're so upset and you don't understand. You can't make any type of, we'll just say, you can't come to a happy median of understanding as to why things are the way that they are. And then you begin to bargain. You begin to say, okay, well, maybe this is why it happened, or this wouldn't have happened if I had of. You can't fixate yourself on these things when it comes to grief. You have to allow yourself to let go, because a lot of things are beyond our control. It's just the way life is. But at the same time, we know that our Father in heaven can make beautiful masterpieces out of broken areas. And it's no different with grief. We don't want you to ever fall into the state of depression, which is also associated with grief. And so with that depression standpoint, you don't want to have something that's going to cause you to have a hindrance and to have that mindset where you just kind of go dark. You stop caring for yourself. You stop doing the things that you once enjoyed to do, and you once enjoyed doing. You start to just kind of withdraw and isolate yourself. And that's one of the ways that the enemy works through tricking your mind and taking hold of you during the process of grief. This is why it's so important for you to stay connected to our Father in heaven through the avenue of prayer, requesting everything that you need from him so that he can equip you with these things through your process of grief. And so the final phase of grief would be the acceptance. And so when you decide and you make sense of it all, you finally accept what is actually taking place. You know that you can no longer bring that person or that thing back. And grief does not have to it's not just specific to loss of a person. So let's be clear about that. People are grieving. You grieve anytime you lose something of great value, whether or not you acknowledge that or not. And so you can grieve a relationship. So those that have experienced infidelity within a relationship, you're going to go through a grieving process, especially if you go through the divorce phase. Even if you don't go through the divorce phase, you're never going to have something that was before that actual account took place. You have new stepping stones if you choose to remain in it, but if you don't, it's just an entire severance. But for you that chose to stay in it, it's normal for you to feel like you're in a state of grief, in a state of mourning, because you are losing something of great value. You no longer get to say, well, I was the last person that my husband or my spouse was, or my wife was with. And so you need to go through those steps of the grief, but you need to make sure that you have a line of communication with our Heavenly Father, like I stated, for you to be able to maneuver all of these different areas that could possibly come up. And everybody processes grief different. So just because someone may, go through the denial phase, they may go from the denial phase to acceptance. They may go from denial to bargaining to acceptance. They may go from angry to bargaining to acceptance. Some people skip the denial phase. Some people skip the bargaining phase. Some people just fall into a state of depression without ever getting angry or denying it or trying to make sense of it all. But then they go back to, to process those emotions and take it to our Father in heaven, and they seek that which they need, and He equips them with what they need, and then they learn to accept it. And so it's important. And so when I was given this particular message, it's defined as the anguish experienced after significant loss, usually the death of something or a loved one, often includes physiological distress, separation, anxiety, confusion, yearning, obsessive dwelling on the past, and apprehension about the future. Okay. And anguish is a severe mental, physical suffering. That's what anguish is. It is not something that's light. It's not something that is just kind of blown over. It is something that is severe. And so that's intertwined with grief. When you go through the process of grief, somewhere in there, you're going to go through that mental capacity where it just kind of hits like a ton of bricks and you don't know what to do with it. And then when you're in distress about something, this means that you need aiding. You need assistance. So this is not something that you should be trying to just get through by yourself or do it on your own. That's not what we're called to do. We have the avenue to receive everything that we need as believers. So make sure that you take the time to properly process your emotions and not give the enemy a foothold on just allowing you to spew out or lash out at people just because you have not processed the things that you know you need to process. And then the definition of apprehension is anxiety, fear of something bad. And without the understanding, like you start to dwell on that happening. You think about something extensively bad, or you become super fearful of something bad taking place. And so that is what apprehension is. It's a state of fear that kind of makes you stagnant. And so you don't ever want to give the enemy that control either, because now you're operating out of fear. And we know that we're not to operate out of fear. We're to operate out of a space of courage and confidence of who we've been created to be, and who we know we can confide in, and where our faith lies, because it's not by our own strength or might that we get through the life circumstances or trials and tribulations. Grief is no different. And so that is the definitions of the actual terminology for grief. And so spiritually speaking, we know that there are a lot of different people that are experiencing different types of grief. There are so many different chaotic things that are going on in the lives of people, myself included. But you cannot get to the point where you remain stagnant, you become fearful, or you become angry, or you become, we'll just say depressed in a dark space, or where you lack the ability to accept the things that you cannot control or change. And so that is, the message. That is the reminder. That is the encouragement for someone that needs to hear it. And then remember Job. That's who I was reminded of in this circumstance. Job suffered great loss, guys. He suffered great loss, but he processed it and he relied on who he needed to rely on. And everything was taken away from him. But in the end, he ended up being able to receive more than he received in his earlier years, in the beginning of his life. And so he went on to live a very good, full life, abundantly favored from heaven. And so the second person that came to mind was Lot. Lot suffered a great loss. So many of you know the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and how he was, you know, he was rescued, he and his family. But the one thing that his wife was instructed not to do, which was to turn around and look at everything that was going on behind her, she chose to do, and that cost her her life. She ended up being turned into a pillar of salt. And so we see a lot of different lessons in that, but this specific account is relative to the loss that Lot experienced during that time frame. And so with that being the case, you don't ever want to put your disobedience into a standpoint that's going to affect others, or that's going to affect you, because it all has a connectivity. And so that's my message for today, guys. I just pray that you take your grief to our Father in heaven, and that you don't try to do it alone. You have supports. Even if it's not in the manner that you think that it should be, even if it's not the people that you desire it to come from, you have everything that you need through his hand. He will supply it. You have to believe it in order to receive it. Trust in him. Give it all to him. Okay? And that's all I have for you today, guys. I look forward to the next message, and I thank you for watching this message to its entirety. And for those of you that have taken the time to comment on the previous messages released, I do appreciate you, whether it's in agreement or not, because I feel like, you know, our Father in heaven is going to lead who he needs to these messages that I release. And as always, I pray for each and every one of you, regardless of if we're in agreement or not, that your heart posture is fixated on him and that which he wants you to understand and comprehend and desires to tell you and instruct you. And so as always, guys, I pray nothing but the best of blessings, of success, the best of success in all that you do. And I look forward to the next message. Take care.